And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato, and I'm joined by...
Hope.
Welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs, and today we're talking...
Henry Cavill.
All right, before we get into that, if you want to support the show and what we do here, visit our Patreon. There's a link in the description that supports the podcast, the YouTube channel, and everything that we do. So another thing that we're talking about is you guys haven't been supportive of the DCEU movies, and that's why a shakeup may be happening. So if you haven't been paying attention this week, there's been rumors circulating that Henry Cavill will leave the DCEU. Ho, do you believe that?
I do.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we titled this The Real Reason Henry Cavill Won't Leave. I don't think he'll leave. So we'll kind of talk. I have a couple theories. So I really think there's two people standing in his way. And I want to talk about those two people. But you're on the other side of the fence and you think that he will. So what's up with that?
All right. Well, my 2 cents with it is just, I think his people looked at his contract and see like, okay, Justice League, that aspect is pretty much dead. He himself as an actor has been hot recently. He had great success with Mission Impossible Fallout. He just got signed on to do a big series with Netflix based on the video game The Witcher. So with those two things in mind, his people are like, okay, we don't see any sequels down the line, but our client, you know, our main man, like he's been doing great. Like we need to redo his contract. We need to get some sequels going on.
But that's what you keep in mind. You said redo his contract, sequels going on. So I do think it's a bluff. And another thing that you brought up, like a couple points that you bring up that I'm just going to put X's all over. You said he just got a big deal with Netflix. Yeah. Big and Netflix don't match because
What do you mean?
I think because Netflix biggest production right now has been either Bright or what's the other movie that it was supposed to be in theaters, but then Netflix bought it for $50 million? Paradox.
Yeah.
That's been their biggest spend right now from a movie standpoint, I believe. At least at the time it was.
Yeah.
So if they're handing out $50 million movies, I mean, what's their budget for actors look like? It can't be that, huge. You know what I mean? And then another thing, you say he's hot because of Mission Impossible. I could point to every supporting character on the Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol movie, and none of them ended up because everybody thought they were going to be hot. None of them stayed hot except Tom Cruise. That's his franchise. He's the only one that stayed hot. And one more thing.
I understand that.
Can I say one more thing before I allow you to interrupt? Because these are your words, not mine. You said his people looked over his contract. His people don't see sequels down the road. That's actually a lie. Because the two people that I said that are keeping him from leaving the DCEU, one of them are his people, his manager. Do you know who his manager is?
Who is he again?
Well, who is she? Is Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, have you heard that name before?
I have. I've seen it online.
All right, she's also the manager of The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And currently, Dwayne The Rock Johnson has, I think, 2 or 3 movies for the DCEU down the road. Like he's rumored to be in Suicide Squad 2. He's also has the Black Adam coming out, and he may or may not show up in Shazam. Who knows? But that's the DCEU. But outside the DCEU, Warner Brothers partners heavily with his $7 production company. So
of course,
that's their big client. You know what I mean? I think Danny Garcia is Dwayne The Rock Johnson's ex-wife, but they're still business partners. If there's anybody that she's showing loyalty to right now, it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson, then Warner Brothers being one of their big partners, and then Henry. Because between Henry and The Rock, who's the bigger star?
The Rock.
All right, that's why I'm like, okay, this is a bluff. She's trying to fix the contract. He's not going anywhere.
Okay, here's the other side why I think it's real. You said, he may or may not, be in Shazam. He may or may not be in Suicide Squad. You know what I'm saying? Like all these different may or may nots. The problem with the DCEU is just that they don't know what they want to do. And part of the reason why this rumor came up was the fact that with Supergirl, they were thinking of possibly recasting Superman as an older Superman. So with that said, you know what I'm saying? Just because they recast it and put an older Superman, it wouldn't affect Henry necessarily. But at the same time, it affects him because that's another appearance where he's not in the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
but we keep
talking about Man of Steel.
Yeah, we keep talking about internally in the movie. I'm talking about externally. If there's anything that we learned, remember when Sony had those email leaks?
Yeah.
Studios execs get a little sensitive and petty when it comes to like how people leave or negotiate with the studio. So it's like, it's not far-fetched to believe that the terms that Henry Cavill leaves, if he leaves, it would leave a sour taste in Warner Brothers' mouth. And I think that's why Danny wants to avoid that. I do think that he jumped the gun and leaked it without Danny knowing. That's why Danny was so clear, because she was the one that went on social media and said, everybody hold their horses, the cape's still in the closet. I don't think that came from her. Like, I think Henry was kind of going rogue, and she was like, time out, you messing up all of our money now? I think you need to chill. You need to suck this up and do this franchise, regardless if it's good or not from a rotten site that should not be named standpoint. You need to do it. And if there's one thing I know about The Rock, he doesn't care if his movies are good or not. So like when you talk about like, I would imagine if Henry's coming from that same Danny Garcia camp, he probably doesn't care if his movies are good or not. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all about, okay, how much am I getting paid to do this? And does this make me more independent going forward? Because every movie that Rock has done, he's done a lot of bad movies, but it's ultimately put him in like a chess position to like, his $7 production company is actually, you know, every movie that he's doing, like they're behind that also. So they've partnered with big studios to actually and it gets him more money from like the back end or whatever. So I'm imagining they're probably trying to do the same thing with all of their clients. But I think this is more of a negotiation tactic and he'll be back in it. Now, this doesn't guarantee that the DCEU is going to be fixed. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's horrible. But I think another reason, when we take his manager aside, I think another reason why you won't see him leave is so the CEO of Warner Brothers is this Asian guy named Kevin Tsujihara. Mm-hmm. And I may be saying that wrong, but I say it's Tsujihara or whatever. But he's been the CEO of Warner Brothers since 2013. And he's been doing such a bad job. I never used to pay attention to studio execs until him. I'm like, who's running the ship? But I've done some research on him. I was gonna do a video a while back, but I just wanted to see how this thing will unfold. But he's not gonna let Henry leave either. I think he'll pull a Brinks truck and back it up into his parking lot and give him what he wants. Because as soon as they have to I think if they lose Henry, and they're already losing Batman with Ben Affleck, I don't know if the DCEU could survive losing 2 of their key players. It'll just end up being, okay, let's do a Wonder Woman trilogy and forget about the other films, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think anybody could survive losing 2 of their key players. I think he realizes as soon as that franchise has to be rebooted, he's getting fired. And I think he's going to prolong this process, good or bad movies. But as long as this franchise is making films, I think it makes it extremely difficult to fire him. So he's virtually unfireable right now.
I don't know. Even with everything you said, like, and I understand what you're saying, like with the tactic, but even because you said even with Mission Impossible, like Rebecca Ferguson, she's one of the people that actually got hot too. Like she got the Men in Black spinoff, she got Dune.
Is that hot?
Come on, that is hot.
That's hot to you, right now?
Okay, if I do a movie, all right, I'm virtually like unknown or whatever, but then all of a sudden after that movie, I get 2 more blockbusters like Men in Black and Dune. Like, come on, that means I'm hot. That means like, oh
no, let me stop. She is hot, but you think it came from that?
Yeah, look at all her roles before Mission Impossible and look at all her roles afterwards. You tell me.
No, that's what I want you to do. Look up her roles after Mission Impossible. And it was one that she did prior to Mission Impossible. It just got released after. And I'm talking about Rogue Nation. And what movie was she in?
Okay, I'm looking up her IMDb right now.
It's a musical. I'll give you a hint.
There's really nothing before Rogue Nation, really. So you're saying it's not Rogue Nation that made her hot?
The Greatest Showman.
Come on, man. Come on. It had to be the...
Nobody knew that chick could act until that movie.
I'm trying...
But it's a combination of everything. It's like I think if you don't have the Greatest Showman, it was Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation made her more respectable to American eyes. Exactly. But I think Greatest Showman showed it like, oh, this chick could actually act. So she's a little bit more prestigious than just a pretty face. But Fallout, I just think that's just talent right there, man. Like people know she's talented. I don't even know if that's like the Men in Black thing. It's a little connected, but it's connected to the whole. It's those three films together. Yeah. You can't say it was just one. It's the fact that, oh man, this chick was in Rogue Nation. She was in The Greatest Showman, and she just did her thing in the last Fallout movie. So Henry Cavill has to do like 2 more movies before he pops. And I'll tell you straight up, that Netflix movie ain't gonna be it. It's a video game, and you know how those go. And if you look on his IMDb, it's looking pretty dry right now.
Okay, the other side of it, one last point. With Kevin Tsujihara, like he's still there as the CEO, but recently in June, like they had a real big shakeup at the studio where Sue Kroll got kicked out. They did a lot of rearranging with like the heads and stuff, and one of the notes in the article said that Kevin Tsujihara would take a step back. So even with that, like as far as like his day-to-day operations, he'll still have the title, but as far as day-to-day, he's gonna take a step back. I think Warner's you said still have the title. I agree with that, but your page, he could take a step back, but the title's still the same. I'm imagining, guess what's still the same? The paycheck. But
like there's rumors about this guy. The only reason he rushed the mustache CGI thing is because he knew if they delayed the film and released it in 2018, that they were coming up on a quarter earnings report, and if they would have released that film after that, he felt that he would have got fired. So he was like, "Hey man, if it's not done, y'all not fired, but he would have missed out on a bonus." He was like, "I need to get this bonus because I don't know if I'm going to be here next year." So that's the only that like executives there's been leaks that's the only reason why that mustache looks so horrible. They could have fixed it, but because of timing, he didn't give him enough time because he needed to get that movie out in 2017 or he would have missed out on a bonus because he thought he was going to get fired. And fun fact, you guys may need to fact check me on this, but there's been no CEO in the history of Warner Brothers that has ever kept their job for multiple Batman franchises. So Robert Daly was the CEO that he ended his reign in 1999, and he oversaw those Batman and Robin, like with basically the Burton and Schumacher films. Yeah. So his last film was Batman and Robin, which ended that particular franchise. And after that, you had Barry Meyer. I like the guy's first name. He stepped down in 2013 after The Dark Knight Rises. So with this one, Kevin is the only one that hasn't had a successful Batman film under his watch. And if when he became CEO, he wanted to focus on the Superman property versus Batman. He wanted to kind of squeeze the juice out of that one. And he's been wrong. So that's a fireable offense already. The fact that he bet on the wrong horse. So it's like, soon as this has to get rebooted, forget about taking a step back. He's going to have to exit the organization just like the other guys did. And I don't think he wants to do that. So yeah, like I think you guys can hold your horses. If you guys like the DCEU movies, trust me, you're going to get more bad movies coming down the road because I believe there's 2 people blocking Henry from leaving that door, and it's his manager and it's the CEO of Warner Brothers. So if Henry wants money, he's going to get it because the CEO is not going to let him leave. And also if he wants roles and guidance, I think he's going to lean on his manager, Danny, who's going to say, hey, work with these guys. We have a strong relationship with Warner Brothers and we don't want to jeopardize that. So, and Hulk, you're on the opposite side of the fence, but hey, nobody knows who's right. Let's see how this thing plays out.
I hope I'm wrong.
I'm anxious to hear. Go ahead.
No, I hope I'm wrong.
Actually, I don't hope you're wrong. It's just that, yeah, like this stuff needs to get fixed. Like I don't want to wait until I'm like 89 to watch good Batman and Superman movies. And on this pace, yeah, like I'd rather they just cut their losses and fix it. But I just know that's not gonna happen. Warner Brothers always goes against the grain when when it comes to making good decisions. So anxious to hear what you guys think. Let us know, guys. Is Henry really out the door, or is this guy trolling? Is Warner Brothers going to let him do that? So share your thoughts, guys. It's about that time. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Before you leave, if you like what you heard, share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcasts. Don't let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show and become a sponsor by visiting our Patreon at www.patreon.com/CouchTomatoFilms. Also, join us next week and check out the show notes on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.